Inshallah, I'll start with just dua. I like to start, inshallah, our sessions with the regular dua that I start my classes with. So, inshallah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. نوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, all praise is due to God, Lord of the worlds, and peace and blessings be upon our Master Muhammad and his noble family and companions and followers. We intend to learn and to teach, to remind and be reminded, to benefit and be benefited, to improve and be improved, and to encourage holding fast to the Book of God and the way of his messenger, and to call unto guidance and to direct towards good, hoping for the countenance of God and his pleasure and his proximity and his reward. And peace and blessings be upon our Master Muhammad and his noble family, companions, and followers. Ameen. So, thank you all for joining me for the dua. Inshallah, today I wanted to reflect on some verses from Surat al-Kahf, verses 9 through 21. And what we will do as we reflect on these verses, we'll read the English translation together, and then we're going to start the commentary. So if we can please have the verses on the screen. Thank you so much. So inshallah, today we're going to look at just a brief glimpse at the story of the companions of the cave. Have you, O Prophet, thought that the people of the cave and the plaque were the only wonders of our signs? Remember when those youths took refuge in the cave and said, "Our Lord, grant us mercy from yourself and guide us rightly through our ordeal." So we caused them to fall into a dead sleep in the cave for many years. Then we raised them so we may show which of the two groups would make a better estimation of the length of their stay. We relate to you, O Prophet, their story in truth. They were youths who truly believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance. And we strengthened their hearts when they stood up and declared, "Our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and we will never call upon any God besides him. Or we would truly be uttering an outrageous lie." Then they said to one another, "These people of ours have taken gods besides him. Why do they not produce a clear proof of them? Who then does more wrong than those who fabricate lies against Allah? Since you have distanced yourself from them and what they worship besides Allah, take refuge in the cave. Your Lord will extend his mercy to you and accommodate you in your ordeal." And you would have seen the sun as it rose, inclining away from their cave to the right, and as it set, declining away from them to the left. While they lay in its open space, that is one of the signs of Allah. Whoever Allah guides is truly guided, but whoever he leaves to stray, you will never find for them a guiding mentor. And you would have thought they were awake, though they were asleep. We turned them over to the right and left, while their dog stretched his forelegs at the entrance. Had you looked at them, you would have certainly fled away from them, filled with horror. And so we awakened them so that they might question one another. One of them exclaimed, "How long have you remained asleep?" Some replied, "Perhaps a day or part of a day." They said to one another, "Your Lord knows best how long you have remained. So send one of you with these silver coins of yours to the city and let him find which food is the purest. And then bring you provisions from it. Let him be exceptionally cautious and do not let him give you away." For indeed, if they find out about you, they will stone you to death or force you back into their faith, and then you will never succeed. That is how we caused them to be discovered, so that their people might know that Allah's promise of resurrection is true and that there is no doubt about the hour. When the people disputed with each other about the case of the youth after their death, I think this is where I wanted to end, inshallah. So maybe if we can go back just one slide. That is how we caused them to be discovered, so that their people might know that Allah's promise of resurrection is true and that there is no doubt about the hour. So inshallah, we'll stop at this particular clause. And this story, we've read it. We read Surat al-Kahf, alhamdulillah, every Friday. We're reminded, especially through Celebrate Mercy, it is read for us. And the reflection I had this time was actually about how the youth were turned around in the cave. And I think it's in verse 18 where it mentions that the youth are turned like they're asleep. They're fully asleep. And while they're sleeping in this cave that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides them to take refuge in, and they're obviously in a very deep slumber, they are being turned over to the right and to the left, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is literally having them turned over in their sleep. And something that's really significant about this is even when it comes to people, who are alive in this world today, and let's say they are bedridden in a hospital bed, in a nursing home, and they're paralyzed or unable to sleep, or paralyzed or unable to move, that nurses will actually come and move them over from their right and to their left so that they don't get any bruises or don't get any boils, or it's important that someone doesn't just lay flat for a long period of time, or else it's actually bad for their bodies. So the fact that the Quran mentions that in their sleep, they are being turned over to their right and to their left. They're in complete, they're not even aware of this. They're asleep. And yet their physical bodies are being cared for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This reminded me of a beautiful statement. And this whole story, actually, in this way, that particular scene of the surah reminded me of something that Imam Ibn Ajiba, he mentions about tawakul. First, the youth in the cave, they turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they make a dua at the very beginning that Allah protects them, right? And so they're putting their full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then their supplication is answered. And it's answered in a way they likely never imagined. It's answered in the way of a miracle. And the scene of them being in total slumber, being turned over left and right and cared for, is I think it's a very important scene of the story. The fact that it's even mentioned in the Quran and related to us is something for us to reflect on. And the main lesson that I take from this story is their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Imam Ibn Ajiba talks about tawakkul, he mentions that tawakkul is the dependence upon God. It's for our reliance on God. And it's when our heart has such assurance that in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it ceases to rely on anything else. And it is to be attached to Allah and reliant upon Him for all things, based on the knowledge that He is the knower of all things, and that what is in God's hand is more certain than what is in our own. Now, he says the first level of tawakkul is when someone is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way that someone is with when they talk to a trusted friend. Okay, they are if they have a trusted friend that is caring and is someone that will keep their confidence, this is the lowest actual level of tawakkul. Why? Because when you tell a trusted friend about something that you're going through, a difficulty, you're still managing your affair. You're telling them as well, in case they have some kind of help that they will offer you. Maybe they will say something, maybe they will help you, but you have a good opinion of them, of course, that's why you're going to them. But you're still managing your own affair. and you're open to help from them, but it doesn't mean that you really believe that your help is going to come from them. You're not putting all of your affair in their hands. You're still holding on to it. And so the second level, he describes it as when we entrust our affairs to the way that an infant trusts their mother. So an infant will cry when it's hungry, and it will cry when it needs a diaper change. Essentially, the infant has absolute need for their mother, but they only call on their mother's help when there's a problem. They are not constantly calling upon their mother's help, but they have a good opinion of their mother, and they know that if they cry, then their needs will be fulfilled. And this second level is a good level to strive for. And then he says there's this highest level, and this is really where the scene of that's mentioned in the surah strikes the heart. And he says the highest degree of tawakul is that we be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like the dead body is in the hands of the one who is washing it. That's how we are with Allah. We are in total and complete and absolute surrender. We know that He will take care of us. Our trust is so high, right? This is the highest level. May Allah allow us to strive for it and allow us to attain it, is to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our trust of Him the way that an infant is. The way that a dead body is when it's being washed. A dead body has no will of its own. A dead body is being taken care of, washed, shrouded, in the hands of the people that are assigned to do this. And to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that way is an example of total and absolute surrender to Him and the highest level of trust. Now, in the story of the companions of the cave, they are in a state of sleep, which is similar to death, right? They call sleep the little death or the minor death. And they are being turned around in their sleep by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe angels are the ones doing it, but by His command, on their right side, on their left side, their physical affairs are being completely taken care of, right? So these companions, they make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their trust in Him. And after that, He takes care of them in a way that they could have never imagined, with a miracle that is so great. It's mentioned in Quran and repeated with the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam every Friday. And if you were to put yourself in the place of the young people who made that prayer, they could have never wondered about the answer of their prayer being so great. But the way that they are seen in the cave and the way that they are cared for in the cave, it also is an indication of how much trust and reliance they had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them a way out of the difficulty they were in and to take care of their affairs. And you can say outwardly, right, they were asleep and their body is being turned over left and right, but inwardly that shows a great deal of trust and tawakul and faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on their part. And so one of the things that I want us to think about is, how do we have tawakkul in Allah? How do we trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our difficulties, with our worries, with our concerns? To do this, we can look at one of the beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-Wakil, translated as, it's given many translations, but you can say the trustee, or the best of those to entrust our affairs, right? So the ultimate trustee. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that Allah is sufficient as a trustee, right? And also, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ, that whoever puts their trust in Allah, then Allah is sufficient for them. And Imam Ibn Ajiba, he says that He is the one who takes it upon Himself to tend to His servants' needs and freely administer their affairs in accordance to what He has willed. When the Most High attends to the servant's needs, He enriches him, rendering them free of need from all others, and He blesses him with His providential care, sufficing him from every preoccupation. He enriches him and makes him free from every other and every peer. And so the servant does not consider their needs too numerous, for he knows that his trustee and guarantor is none other than his master and Lord. There's a beautiful story I want to share in this regard. And again, this is a miraculous story. So, it shows a very high level of trust. Okay, that's the point of the story, is that we have different levels of tawakul. The beginner is like the one who is trusting a friend and a confidant, open to help, but not necessarily certain that that help is there. The second level is like the infant who only, calls out to God in a state of need, when there's need of help. But outside of that, they're content on their own to some extent. And the third level is to be completely surrendered, right? Completely loving surrender to God, like the body, like the dead body that's being washed. Now, we know that if we entrust the more, the good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more that we grow it, the better it is for us. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am as my servant thinks I am. So if we have greater certainty and certitude in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we will find him for us as we think of him. And it doesn't mean that we do the same outward actions as other people. Okay, so in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he comes and he donates all of his wealth to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, what did you leave for yourself and for your family? And he said, I left Allah and his messenger. Meaning he has so much tawakkul. He has so much trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he can literally give away all of his wealth with a level of certainty that he knows, I will be taken care of. My rizq is still going to come. None of us will be harmed. And this is a very high level of tawakkul and faith. Another companion comes and tries to do the exact same action as Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, which is to give away all their wealth. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually stopped him and said not to do that, and to give half and to keep half. Why? Because his faith had not yet arrived to that high level of trust. And so we do strive to increase our trust in Allah. And as we increase our trust in Allah, we find the answer from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his sufficiency for us increasing in accordance with our levels of trust. So it's reported, and Imam Ibn Ajiba mentions this, that Ahmed ibn Khudraway, who is a scholar and a zahid from Afghanistan, and he was born in 762 AD and he died in 854 AD from the region of Balkh. I just like to let people know that when we're reading some of these names in Islamic history, like they're not just names in a book, they were people with biographies. So this is a true story about Ahmed ibn Khudraway from Afghanistan. And he was on his deathbed and he owed 70,000 dirhams. This is like a lot of money. Ibn Ajiba, he says this is 700 mithqals. Now, I don't know what the equivalent is in US dollars, but it's a lot of money. And so he's on his deathbed and he convenes a meeting with all of his debtors and he says, "Oh God, let my soul be a pawn in their hands. If you will to take my soul, then see that their rights, the rights of everyone that he owes a debt to, are fulfilled." At that very moment, someone knocks on the door and says, "Everyone to whom Ahmed owes money should step outside." And then that man pays his debt. As soon as the man, and the man is unnamed, pays off the debt to the debtors of Ahmed ibn Khudraway, he passes away. May Allah have mercy on him. And so Imam Ibn Ajiba, he says that he who knows that the real is his trustee, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is his trustee, will entrust all of his or her needs with him. He will not attempt to manage his own affairs alongside of him, and he will not rely upon anyone except him. Right? وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And we connect with this beautiful name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-Wakil, by turning resolutely to him and making dua that he makes our faith sound, our certitude in him sound, our opinion of him good, and always increasing and always becoming better. And that we rely on no one else but him, and turn to no one else but him, and submit ourselves and resign our affairs to no one else but him. And so this is the reflection from the surah, or the section of the surah today, it was for us to reflect on our own tawakul. And when the symbol of the youth in the cave being turned over in their sleep from the right and the left, and Allah is physically taking care of them as they're sleeping. That we similarly, we may have trials and tribulations, we may have difficulties, we may have situations that are actually easy and they're blessings, but even our blessings are a test because we will be asked about them. And so entrusting all of our affairs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having this sense of faith in Him that everything will be okay. Not only will everything be okay, everything will be excellent. That we put our trust in Him to the extent that if we keep Him in our hearts at all times, as much as we can. So a difficulty strikes, and maybe the first thing a person thinks is, I need to call a doctor, I need to call a friend, I need to consult with someone. All of these things are fine. Like using the asbab, using the material means that we have in this world to seek out solutions is something we're supposed to do. But the first one that we need to consult, the first one that we need to be with, the first one that we need to make dua for, the first one that we need to speak to is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we do that in the beginning, and we do that in the middle, and we do that in the end, the way that we experience our lives is going to be more beautiful. The difficulties will become much lighter. The blessings will become more beautiful. And that sense of peace that comes from loving surrender, inshallah, would enter our hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who truly put our trust in Him. If we have worries about our trust, if we have worries about, that seem to not leave our hearts, we can repeat to ourselves as a dhikr, as a form of dhikr, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. And we can keep repeating that until we feel that worry alleviated from our heart. That Allah is sufficient for us, and He is the best of those to entrust our affairs. And as we say it, we can literally imagine taking something out of our hearts and handing it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever that worry and concern is. And so that was my reflection, inshallah. And may Allah allow all of us to have increasing levels of tawakkul, increasing levels of iman, and increasing levels of our good opinion of Him, inshallah. And whatever I said that's beneficial is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever I said that's wrong and mistaken is from myself and shaitan. Barakallahu feekum.